This story isn't one I heard from the internet. It's personal. It's about my sister, Kelly Rains, and the night she never came home. Every Halloween, someone leaves flowers on the porch of the old Cooper house, the one that's been boarded up since '98. That's where Kelly was babysitting the night she disappeared. She was 17, smart, funny, always had a plan, and none of us ever imagined that one Halloween shift would be her last. Kelly had been babysitting for the Coopers for a while. They trusted her. She was great with their little girl, Sophie. That night, the Coopers were at a dinner party just a few streets away. It was supposed to be an easy job. Cartoons, snacks, a baby monitor, and a thunderstorm rolling in outside. Around 11:12 p.m., the phone rang. She told me later she almost didn't answer. It was one of those old landlines with the long coiled cord. The voice on the other end was strange, deep, calm, almost too slow. You shouldn't be alone on Halloween, Kelly. She thought it was a prank, laughed, hung up. Then the phone rang again. I like the color of the curtains. The problem was, the curtains were closed. When she told me about that part later, I remember she tried to make it sound funny, but her hands were shaking. She went upstairs to check on the baby. Sophie was asleep, soft breathing through the baby monitor. Rain against the window. When Kelly came back down, the front door was slightly open. Not much, just enough for the porch light to flicker through. She locked it, sat back on the couch, and turned the TV up. And that's when she saw it. In the reflection on the TV screen, a shape standing at the window behind her. She turned around. Nothing there. Curtains still closed. Later, when the police traced the call, they found out it had come from a disconnected number. The kind that shouldn't have even worked. Around 11:46 p.m., the baby monitor picked up a voice. Not a cry, not static, but a whispering whisper. Shh, you'll wake her. Kelly ran upstairs. The crib was empty. The staring in. She called 911. You can hear it on the tape. She's terrified, trying to explain what's happening. But halfway through, the line just dies. The Coopers got home 20 minutes later. The lights were off. The TV still humming softly. The baby was back in the crib, asleep. But Kelly was gone. They never found her. The only thing she left behind was a wet footprint by the door. Not hers. Much larger. It's been over 25 years. The police closed the case, but no one in that town ever forgot. Every Halloween, the light in that house flickers at exactly the same time. 11:46 p.m. Some kids say if you look through the upstairs window, you'll see a girl standing there, holding a baby in her arms. But the power's been cut to that house for decades. I used to think it was just a story people told to scare each other. But every Halloween night, right around the time she disappeared, my phone rings once. No caller ID. And on the other end, there's nothing. No voice. No breathing. Just the sound of rain. Some stories don't end with answers. Some just keep calling. Story 2. The House Next Door. This story came from a young woman named Jana, who said what happened that Halloween night still plays in her head. Every time she hears a phone ring after dark. Her older sister Melissa and her husband Tom had just moved into a quiet cul-de-sac. One of those places where everyone knows everyone, where neighbors borrow sugar, talk football, and leave their doors unlocked on good days. They had a newborn baby, 3 months old, and were the kind of couple everyone liked. That Halloween, they didn't go out. Melissa put the baby to sleep early and stayed home, while Tom walked next door to George and Lena's house to watch the late football match. Just another night. Jana said her sister called her around 10:15, telling her she could hear faint footsteps outside, but figured it was just kids cutting through the backyard for candy. She laughed about it. It was Halloween, after all. But around 10:30, Tom's call came in. He sounded calm at first, told her the game had started, and George had just gone upstairs to grab more drinks. A few minutes later, though, the call dropped mid-sentence. According to police reports later, someone had broken into George and Lena's house from the back kitchen door, using a crowbar. The first thing they found were Lena's keys on the floor, and the baby monitor from Melissa's house, smashed. But Jana didn't know any of that yet. All she knew was that her sister wasn't answering. Inside the neighbor's house, Tom had gone upstairs after hearing a loud thud. When he reached the hallway, he saw the door to the master bedroom cracked open, and blood on the frame. He froze. There was a man inside, wearing a cheap Halloween mask, a skull with black eyes. He was standing over George's body. Lena was on the bed, unmoving. Tom backed into the hall and ducked into the guest room, trying to stay quiet. He dialed Melissa's number, but before he could speak, the masked man turned toward the sound. Tom whispered, "Melissa, don't come over here. Don't." The line went dead. Minutes later, the phone rang again. But this time, it wasn't Tom calling. It was the masked man, holding Tom's phone. He forced Tom to speak, knife pressed against his throat. "Hey, honey," he said, voice shaking. "Can you come over? George said he needs your help real quick." Lena fell. Melissa hesitated. "You sound weird. Are you okay?" He paused. "Yeah. Just hurry." She almost went. Almost. But something in his tone didn't sound right. Too quiet. Too controlled. Then she noticed something through her window. The light upstairs at George's house flickered off, and for a second, a shadow moved across the window. Someone dragging something heavy. Melissa grabbed her phone and whispered, "Tom, if this is some kind of joke." But he wasn't there anymore. She froze. The baby monitor on the table suddenly hissed with static. Then a voice whispered through it, low and hoarse. He said to bring the baby too. Melissa ran upstairs to her child's room. The window was open, curtains blowing in the wind. She scooped up her baby and ran toward the kitchen. But before she could reach the door, she saw someone standing outside the glass. A tall man, still wearing that skull mask, not moving, just standing. He tilted his head slowly, like he could see her through the darkness. She backed away, clutching the baby. Then she heard another sound, a door hinge creaking from upstairs. There were two of them. She locked herself in the pantry, sat on the floor, holding the baby against her chest. She could hear footsteps moving through the kitchen now. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Then, a whispering whisper through the door. "You shouldn't have run, Melissa." She covered the baby's mouth, trying to keep him from crying. Something brushed against the door, like fingernails scratching gently. Then silence. A minute passed. Then 2. She thought maybe they'd gone. When she finally looked through the tiny gap between the door and frame, she saw something on the floor outside. Her husband's phone. The screen cracked, still lit, showing a single missed call from her. Police arrived at 3:27 a.m. after a neighbor heard glass breaking and called it in. They found the front door open, the baby crying in the hallway, and Melissa lying beside him, gone. Tom's body was found next door, along with George and Lena's, but the intruder was never caught. The only clue, a trail of muddy footprints leading to the backwoods. The prints stopped 20 feet in, as if whoever left them just vanished. Janice said the hardest part wasn't the loss. It was what the baby started doing a few months later. Every Halloween night, around the same time, he'd wake up crying, point at the window, and say, "Daddy's here." But when she looked, the yard was empty. One night, she left her phone recording near the crib. At 10:48 p.m., right when he started crying, a faint voice whispered through the monitor, "You should have come sooner." Jana said she moved out of that town a month later, but sometimes, on Halloween, her phone still gets a call from a number she doesn't know. No caller ID. When she answers, it's just breathing. And every time she hangs up, the baby monitor lights flash. Just once. Like someone still trying to reach her from the house next door. Maybe the scariest part of Halloween isn't the ghosts or the masks, but the moments you think you're safe because you know your neighbors. Because sometimes they're the first ones who stop answering the phone. Story 3. The Trick-or-Treater Who Wasn't Alive. This one is from Brian Turner. Brian used to say, "Halloween night always feels different after midnight. The air gets quieter, heavier, like the world itself is catching its breath after pretending to be something it's not all evening." He was a night shift paramedic in Oregon, worked late calls for years, but this one Halloween stayed with him. He'd just clocked out, driving home through a sleepy neighborhood, when he noticed a kid standing alone by the curb. At first, it looked normal. A small figure in a costume, holding a candy bucket. Brian said he almost didn't stop, but something about the stillness of the kid's posture caught his eye. The costume was a tattered black robe, and the mask, it looked like one of those cheap skeleton masks from the dollar store, except there were no eye holes. Brian rolled down his window. "Hey, kid, you okay? It's pretty late." The child didn't answer. He just raised the bucket, slowly, like expecting candy. Brian laughed nervously and reached for a granola bar from the dashboard. When he looked back, the kid was gone. He stepped out of the car, shining his flashlight. No footprints on the wet pavement. No sign of anyone. He thought maybe it was exhaustion, stress from the shift. But a few blocks later, he saw the same figure standing under a flickering street light. Same robe, same bucket. He slowed the car again, shivering, feeling a chill crawl up his spine. As his headlights hit the figure, something flashed through. Not the light. The kid. One moment it was standing still. The next, it was turned completely toward him, even though it hadn't moved. And through the mask, Brian swore he saw a faint blue glow, like something pulsing where eyes should have been. He hit the gas and drove straight home. When he got inside, he poured a drink and tried to shake the unease. He told himself it was exhaustion, a trick of the fog, maybe a real kid out too late. But as he set down his keys, something clinked on the floor. A small candy, bright orange wrapper, the kind he hadn't seen in years. It wasn't his. He hadn't given candy to anyone. He looked out the front window, and there it was again. The same kid, standing at the edge of his driveway, holding the bucket. Brian froze. The figure didn't move, just tilted its head slightly, like it could see him through the glass. He blinked, and the porch light flickered. When it came back on, the figure was right by the door. Knock, knock, knock. Brian whispered to himself, "You're not real." But the doorknob turned. He grabbed his flashlight and swung the door open. No one there. Just an empty bucket sitting on the porch. Inside it, a Polaroid photo, slightly wet from the rain. In the picture was his car, the same one parked outside, and standing next to it, the trick-or-treater, except the date printed on the bottom read, October 31st, 1987. Brian wasn't even living in that state back then. The police couldn't trace the photo, but a retired officer who heard about the incident told Brian something chilling. That street light, the one where he'd first seen the figure, was the same spot a boy was hit by a drunk driver 36 years earlier. Halloween night. The driver had been dressed as a skeleton. They say on Halloween, the dead walk among us for one night, but sometimes they just want their bucket back.